Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Minister during a previous BJP government, one led by Atal Bihari Vajpayee from 1998 to 2004. Mr. Sinha, welcome to The Print.
Thank you.
You're an old friend of The Print, but this time my questions to you will be about the ongoing standoff in the Ladakh sector between Indian and Chinese soldiers. What are your first comments?
Well, my first comments are that we should not dismiss it as a normal border skirmish, which has often taken place because the border is undefined at various places, and the LAC, as we call it, is something on which China has been very opaque in the past.
Right.
So therefore, this is much more than the old normal. You can say this is perhaps the new normal as far as border management goes between China and India.
What do you mean by the new normal? What do you think the Chinese are trying to do?
Well, to me, it appears that the Chinese are trying to change the status quo on the border, along the line of control. This is what they're trying to change the status quo.
Yeah.
This is what they tried to do in Doklam. They did not fully succeed, though we cannot regard Doklam as a complete victory, because according to my information, while we withdrew into Indian territory from where we had gone into Bhutanese territory, the Chinese withdrew a little because they were very keen that Modi should attend the meeting which was being held in China, Shanghai Cooperation or something.
Yeah.
And so they withdrew a little, but that is where they have stayed. So in a way, in Doklam, they have changed their status quo because they are there, we are not there. So similarly, in whether it's Galwan Valley or this Pangong Lake or wherever, they are trying to establish this new normal, which is that they will change their status quo according to their perception of the LAC and not according to common Sino-Indian or Indo-China perception.
I think in Doklam, what happened was that because it was in a third country in Bhutan, the Bhutanese invited the Indian government or Indian troops to defend its positions. But coming back to what you're saying, that the Chinese want to recreate a new status quo. Why do you think that they want to do that?
There could be many reasons. I mean, the psychology and the history of China would suggest that China throughout history has been an expansionist power.
Mm-hmm.
And this is part of that historical legacy and the national character of China, evident along the LAC as far as we are concerned, evident in South China Sea, evident elsewhere. They don't give up easily. They are today the leading world power, next only to the US. And China fancies itself as overtaking the US, both economically and militarily at some point of time in future. So they have become global leaders, and they would want the world to recognize that they are a superpower, and perhaps the only real superpower in the world. And so everyone must fall in line and become subservient to China. This is very important to understand, that it is not in China's worldview a question of a committee of nations where everyone is equal and everyone's sovereignty is a precious thing. For them, superiority is the name of the game. So they would like to prove not only to India but to the rest of the world that they are superior, they are more powerful than anyone else in the world, and the world should accept this.
So did you understand that when you were External Affairs Minister during the Vajpayee era, and did then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Atalji, when he went to China in 2003, did he understand this, the psychology of the Chinese?
I would say that we understood this. We understood this clearly, though I would say that some of our actions may not have reflected this position completely, even during that 2003 visit that you were mentioning.
Like
In
what,
fact,
like what kind of actions?
I'll tell you. I had written my autobiography recent. It was published last year, and I'd like to quote one line, one sentence from this biography about China, and I quote: "India's motto should be to cooperate with China where such cooperation is for mutual benefit, to compete with it where such competition is in India's national interest, and stand up to it where such a posture is necessary to protect our freedom and territory." And then I have added one more line where I have said, I have not seen such a regime in our country yet. And
that would include your own.
It will include my own. It will include Atalji's regime also.
That's a harsh assessment of Atalji's regime.
No, it is a true statement, but I am not going into the details. But even then we had border problems, border standoffs. It was not allowed to go out of control. But it was not that China was listening to India. And my own personal experience, Jyoti, will go to show that in regional or international gatherings, when the Chinese foreign minister and I both were present, Chinese foreign minister would also always take a line which was like needling India. And I had to be prepared to give a suitable reply on every occasion. And I did.
Yeah.
But, not that one was prepared to concede ground, but that did not prevent them from trying what they have always been trying to do.
Do you remember an incident, or do you remember the time when Atalji went to China in 2003 and the mechanism of the special representatives was set up to discuss this very contested border that we're talking about today, across which the soldiers are facing?
Let me tell you that it was our idea, India's suggestion, that we should raise the level from the foreign secretary to a political level. And we felt that the National Security Advisor in India represented that political level. And so we asked the Chinese, in fact, I asked the then Foreign Minister of China to nominate someone who will be at the same level. And they did oblige, and the discussion on the boundary issue was raised, as we imagined then, to the political level. But that was 2003. We are talking in 2020, and 17 years down the line, what have we achieved through these discussions, which have been quite regular? What have we achieved? We have not even been able to exchange maps with China, showing their perception of the LAC and our perception of the LAC in most sectors. So the progress of talks has been zilch.
What did Atalji, how did he perceive this Chinese, this huge neighbor to India's north?
He was Jyoti fully aware of the historical national characteristics of the Chinese state, and therefore he was quite careful in dealing with China. His understanding of foreign policy was very deep, very comprehensive. There's no doubt about it. And he tried to be on his guard. But still, this did not prevent the Chinese from becoming more friendly than they were with earlier regimes. Even with Mr. Vajpayee when he was the foreign minister.
Yeah.
You remember that famous visit that he made to China and how the Chinese went into Vietnam and how he had to come back, cutting short his visit.
Yeah.
So, you have to be ready in your dealings with a country like China for accidents. Certainly the accident will happen and things will be destroyed. Like where is the Wuhan spirit today? Much was made of the Wuhan spirit, which was further strengthened in Chennai. But China has not cared one bit in departing from the Wuhan spirit in the current situation. So you have to deal with China always very, very carefully. You can take nothing for granted, and you have to hold your ground. As I said, you have to stand your ground in dealing with China.
So 17 years on from that 2003 visit, in today's situation, you've been a former member of the BJP. How do you think India is handling it? How do you think the Modi government is handling China?
I would say that the hugging diplomacy has not worked. It has not worked with China. It has not worked with any country, because a hug will not change the perception of a country towards India or India's perception towards that country. So while Mr. Modi did try to become very friendly with China, he wanted China to be on his side in various dealing with various global issues. That has not happened.
Smart thing to do. That was a smart thing to do, wasn't it?
Oh, but he should have been aware of the realities of geopolitics. He should have been aware of the history and national characteristics of China, as I said. And it's not merely in the management of the LAC. It is also vis-a-vis, for instance, let's say India's membership of the NSG. Mm-hmm. Has China conceded ground? No. So wherever China feels that its own interests are at stake, wherever China feels that its friends' interests like Pakistan's interests are at stake, they are not going to concede ground. And we should be prepared for hard bargaining on all those issues.
Speaking of the neighborhood, I'd like to draw your attention to Nepal. And Nepal has just brought out a new map in which it incorporates Indian territories like Lipu Lake, Limpi Adhura and Kalapani, which is the contested tri-junction. What do you make of that? What do you make of Nepal drawing up a brand new map incorporating Indian territory?
Not only that, Jyoti, Nepal is also planning to have the map approved and becoming a part of the constitution of Nepal. If that were to happen, then any alteration of the map will become almost impossible. I would regard this particular development as extremely unfortunate as far as India-Nepal relations go. I have dealt with Nepal not only as a minister but as a member of parliament. Even when I was not a member of parliament, I had the best of relationship with the Nepalese leadership, thanks largely to the personal relationship that Chandrasekhar enjoyed with all the Nepali leadership. So I have very fond memories of dealing with Nepal, especially when I was External Affairs Minister, and we did not have any problems. The only thing that we have to keep in mind while dealing with all our neighbors, minus China, is that we cannot behave as big brothers. We have to treat them as our sovereign equals and start from that position.
So do you think we are treating Nepal as a smaller brother or a younger brother, and that India is behaving like a big brother?
It is a very great temptation to do that. And you cannot be condescending in your dealing with Nepal. a small little thing will trigger a massive demonstrations all over Nepal, in Kathmandu's streets, against India, if it was perceived that India has done something against the interests of Nepal. It's a very tricky relationship, despite the civilizational links that we enjoy with Nepal. And we have to be more conscious of that than our counterparts in Nepal. And therefore, as I told you, it was very unfortunate. We should not have allowed this situation to arise. Even today, my strongest recommendation to the government will be that we must begin discussions with Nepal on this issue. The Nepalese have told India that they would want foreign secretary level talks. We have been dilly-dallying, quoting lockdown and coronavirus and all that. You and I are talking on, through video conferencing. Why can't the two foreign secretaries talk through video conferencing, or even travel to Kathmandu in a special plane, or invite their delegation to come here, maintain physical distancing, and talk to them? This is the most important thing that Government of India must do. Why is this difference in perception with regard to territory, with regard to Kalapani, with regard to Lipulek, with regard to this Dhura? It is largely because Nepal feels that the river Kali starts from an earlier point.
Right.
And we feel that the river Kali starts from Kalapani. That is the crux of the issue.
I'd like to draw your attention, Mr. Sinha, to comments by the Army Chief General Naravane, who has made two comments. One, he has said on Nepal. In fact, he has not used the word China, but he has indicated that Nepal is doing this at the behest of another country. What do you make of that?
Eminently avoidable comment. Eminently avoidable. Our Chief of Staff is a general in the Nepalese army. And for him to make a statement like this would naturally hurt our neighbor's sentiment. And
perhaps he didn't understand what he was saying.
I don't know. I mean, he is occupying such a high position, such a responsible position. He should have been better advised about making statements on sensitive issues. But this is something which, again become a new normal. It was happening when the last Chief of Army Staff was there. It has happened in the present case. Eminently avoidable.
Perhaps he spoke off the cuff. Somebody asked him, a reporter asked him, and he spoke off the cuff. And you have to perhaps give him, a few marks for honesty.
Honesty is not the best virtue in diplomacy. He should have been better advised. Even if it was off the cuff, I would insist it was avoidable.
General Naravane also made a comment on the ongoing standoff in Ladakh, where he said that both sides are displaying aggressive behavior. That was a bit odd, I thought.
Yeah, but fortunately the Government of India has been very restrained. They have done background briefing, but they have not come out with any statement of their own on this. Though I must say, Jyoti, that the Godi media, especially the vernacular media, is flexing its muscles for China or against China and saying things which again are avoidable. I mean, we don't have to match the Chinese and what they are saying in Global Times with our own vernacular media.
Well, we'll leave the media aside because I'm a card-carrying member of the media. But having said that, how would you describe the Modi government's handling of the situation today on the Ladakh face-off?
Well, take both the neighbors, China and Nepal. I think, as I said, many things have been rent asunder, as they say, because of them. They have been split open. And they have once again emphasized the very important fact in bilateral relationships that don't get carried away by sentiment. These are hard geopolitical facts. The reality on the ground has to be taken into account, and you cannot base your policy on the personal relationship, personal chemistry between two people in these two countries. That does not work bilaterally and multilaterally.
So my last question to you, Mr. Sinha, is what does this do to the neighborhood? China is part of India's immediate neighborhood, so is Nepal. What does this do to India's policy of its? So what does it do to India's neighborhood policy?
India's neighborhood policy has always occupied a very important part of our overall foreign policy. And for any country, the neighborhood policy is the most important. You can't have, recalcitrant neighbors and hope to play a global role. India wants to be Vishwa Guru. We are not even Nepal's guru at this point of time, much less China's guru. So where are we in the neighborhood? I would personally feel that the neighborhood policy of India is in tatters at this point of time. We need to repair it seriously. We need to reach out to our neighbors, especially their smaller neighbors. We should do nothing to rile them. And, as I quoted from my book, deal with China in the manner in which China should be dealt with. I am not for a moment suggesting that we should surrender our initiative to China, or we should allow China to change the status quo along the LAC. Galwan Valley, for instance, has never been an area of dispute on the LAC. Suddenly China has raised that dispute. So therefore, one has to be absolutely cautious at every step in dealing with China. One has to be liberal in dealing with other neighbors. India is the biggest country in East and South Asia, and we have to perform that role without acting as big brother.
Well, I think today's papers do say that India will remain firm, that it will not surrender an inch of territory, whether it's, even though this is a perceived line of actual control between the two countries and Ladakh. But just my last question to you, Mr. Sinha, is you used an interesting word vis-a-vis Nepal, where you said India should not be condescending. Do you think that's what the government is?
We are not the governors general of this area. We are not the viceroy. And these neighbors, whatever their size, are equal sovereign countries. And therefore, they deserve to be treated as such. I'll tell you just one thing and we'll finish. When I took over in the Ministry of External Affairs and went to Mr. Vajpayee for his guidance, the first thing he told me was, you must take care of your neighbors first. And therefore, the first trip that I made as Minister for External Affairs was to Maldives. I went there first of all. I held bilateral discussions with them, then moved to Sri Lanka. I had bilateral discussions there. And before I could go to any other country, I finished visiting all India's neighboring countries, including Afghanistan.
Right. Mr. Sinha, thank you so much for speaking to The Print. Please follow us on our YouTube channel. We have lots of stories, lots of interviews like the one with you. And please tell your friends and family to subscribe and to follow us on social media.
I always see the interviews on Print. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.